Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Work, Wealth, and Travel Podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with Becky. Becky is a luxury travel advisor with over 20 years of experience in the travel industry. She has been featured on the cover of Luxury Travel Advisor magazine, and she is an expert at high-level luxury services, adventure travel, bike trips, wine and gourmet-centric vacations, romantic getaways, and for those times when you're just looking for a time away. In this episode, Becky and I dive into what it has looked like to build her travel agency from the ground up over multiple decades, along with what it looks like when you have various competitors in a similar niche. Of course, in this episode, we also dive into the travel aspect and where have been her most luxurious and amazing experiences while on the road as a travel advisor. So let's dive right into this episode. Becky, welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel Podcast. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today. But before we dive in, I would love to hear a little bit of a background from you. You have a very successful travel business now. So I'm curious, what has brought you to the point of having this successful business? What has your life journey looked like to get here today?
Sure. I'm happy to be here. So, Nicole, thank you for inviting me. So, I think I've always had an entrepreneurial bent, back from even the days when I was a little kid and I colored some kids still lemonade, I colored on rocks and actually made a few sales, for a nickel, quarter, whatever kind of thing. But, I always kind of had that bent, that creativity of wanting to create little mini empires of whatever it was that we were doing. So, I found myself in my early 30s looking for what is my thing. And so at that time, we had already had a few businesses. Believe it or not, we were farmers, we had a paintball business, that type of thing. And I was really doing some soul searching on what makes Becky tick. What was, back then that bucket list thing was really in vogue. The movie had just come out. And I'm like, okay, so what's on my list? And so when I looked at that list of things I wanted to do in my life, experience in my life, I noticed there was a trend. I'm like, oh, that trend is travel. And it wasn't even seen, but it was like, oh, have a picnic, on the Great Wall of China, do the, and so it was all very experiential and it was very travel oriented. And I'm like, huh. And so fast forward, I don't know, a year or so, and I find myself I'm in Sorrento in Italy, just kind of burgeoning onto the Amalfi Coast and standing on the Bay of Naples, overlooking Vesuvio, and sun was setting, and it was like, dang, this was really good. I spent countless hours planning this trip, and I'm like, I could do this. Like, who's gonna hire me? It's like I don't have any travel agent experience, and I didn't want to be a travel agent. I mean, my what I knew was they wanted to sell me Disney, they wanted to sell me a cruise, they wanted to sell me a in the box, tour on a bus. And I'm like, not interested. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to become a consultant to people who want to backpack, who want to, just go to Europe and be culturally relevant and, all that. And so I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I got a little bit of education and found some mentors and put out my shingle. And that was 20 some odd years ago. So
Okay, wow. So you've been at this for quite a while, which I want to dive into a little bit later, but I do want to ask you, so travel, especially nowadays, increasingly is a very competitive niche. So what has it looked like? And that has changed. I'm sure it wasn't as competitive when you started, and now, especially in the last few years, it's a very different landscape. So what has that looked like in terms of keeping up with the trends? And then getting clients when, you do have some fair competition in the market.
Oh, for sure. And it's been great actually to see in the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 10 years to see these amazing entrepreneurs coming up who provide travel services just like I do, who want that bespoke itinerary, who are, if I can say it, who are kind of badass boss women, and they're building their empires. And, I started off being like, I kind of emerging in that. And now I'm like, oh, I need to up my game, kind of thing. And luckily I have a lot of colleagues who inspire me and we help each other along. So, for me, when I first started, it's kind of funny because, I had this vision and my vision came kind of before I even could really execute it as well. So, my vision was this bespoke, culturally relevant, engaging with, local people and life-changing experiences. And I found in the beginning, just to get my first clients, I was doing some of the things that I'm like, I would never do. It's like, oh, I'll never sell inexpensive Vegas, or I'll never sell, Cancun, or, this, that, and the other. And there's nothing wrong with those destinations. I was just too cool for school. And I found myself actually in the trenches doing some of the things for experience that weren't quite aligned with my vision. But after not too much time, it started to converge. And so, but that was difficult for me, to do that. And so, fast forward, as I hone my craft, hone my skill, hone my vision even, and allow my vision to grow with me. I found that I've gotten even more fulfilled, and by allowing that vision to grow, I don't want to get too in the weeds in it, but, where I started with my business plan, sometimes you have to look and go, hey, is this still where I'm going? Is this still where I want to be? And so I allowed my business plan that space to grow with me. And now, even now it's changing where, it's a team aspect. And so that was something I never even 5 years ago even thought about, was that I would be leading a team and not just me doing my thing. And so that has been an interesting way that I've seen this vision of mine take its own life.
Interesting. I want to dive into, the aspect of building a team as well from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but I think I'm curious. So, as an entrepreneur, with everything you just said, what are some of the main differentiating factors that you would say between yourself as a travel agency and another potential travel agency? I know you do more bespoke boutique tours. So, what does that look like? And then how is that marketed to the client?
Sure. I think, I mean, everybody says they have relationships, but I mean, I'm a connector and I love relationships. So, and I'm a hotel geek. I love knowing the owners, the GMs, like when they come here to Atlanta, we're, out, on the rooftop there, at Ponce City Market, having some rosé and playing putt-putt kind of deal, and, or, cocktails somewhere or whatever. But, and you see them all over the world. So I really, for me, cultivating those relationships, where they know who my people are. So there's that. There's, the amount of access we give. I mean, there's no right or wrong. Everybody has their own structure for their business. But for me, for my travelers, I really take them in as my charges while they travel. So they have my personal cell number. And my people are respectful. I mean, they may send me cute selfies of them going gorilla trekking, but they're not disrespectful with it. But if they need something, they can call, text, or WhatsApp me. And that's not going to change. And then there are business models where it's a little more, corporate, or a little more streamlined, where you have a call service or something like that. So, we're very high touch that way. And the other thing is, I mean, I don't know, being in the industry 20 something years, it's hard to get me rattled. like if they're like, oh my gosh, there's a train strike, and then I'm like, okay, let me tell you what to do, because I've been there. Or the yellow vest, or this or that. It's like, okay, well, let's find a way to fix that. um let's find, like my mama always said, she's like, don't just say no, give options. So it's no with options. It's like, well, okay, we can't do this, this is blocked, so let's do this instead, let's ask for this. So I think those are some of the ways that differentiate us.
Yeah, I love that. I really like the no with options. That is also how I choose to live my life. And I think that's really a choice. So I like that you integrate that into your business. So, from everything you just said, it sounds like really at the core of your business is, which I love, is the connections that you have built and the connections that you have with your clients, and then also customer care. And it's funny that you briefly put that in there because a little backstory from what I've been experiencing lately. So, I've been in Latin America for the last almost 2 years, which is wild, has flown by, in various different countries for business. But right now I'm in Mexico. And coming from, a Canada and America, some sort of Western country, the customer service in absolutely every area is unfortunately lacking. When you go to a restaurant, it's different. It's not what we are used to, and it's normal here, which is fine. But my partner, who is even Mexican, now that he's more accustomed to the Western ways, but still being a part of the Mexican culture, he can see both sides of it. And he even now gets frustrated with just how terrible the customer service everywhere is. And so I think that a lot of people don't realize, and it's been a good indicator for both myself and for my partner in our businesses, of customer service and customer care is such a key element. And that alone can be a differentiating factor between somebody working with you and somebody working with a competitor or another agency.
For real. And I think that's really what brought me into the team aspect. Is I found that even though I'm available to my travelers when they're out of country, or on their adventures, I have found last year, and then even starting this year, that just the volume, that it's like, I have to have support. And so I did find myself, especially last year, in the weeds, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have, and I had backup, I had a person, but I'm like, I need another one, and then it's like, I need someone else too. And that's what led me to that team aspect as well, because as much as I want to have the best customer service, but especially in the planning stages, sometimes it takes us longer, because again, that's why I need a team, and why I have a team, and putting more of a team into place. And so that's kind of what drove that as well.
So now I'm curious, from a marketing standpoint, I know quite a few other travel agencies who really work on SEO. And so when you go to Google, you will find them there. What does that look like for you? Is it relationship based? Is it some sort of digital marketing like SEO or social media or broadcasting your travels on YouTube? What does that look like? Or I'm sure there's various different ways, but I'm curious what that client intake looks like for your business.
Sure. And I kind of do a little more like ninja marketing kind of kind of thing. So, you know, I do blog occasionally, and I have some SEO that hasn't been, I kind of go in waves with marketing. For me, I haven't found something over the last 22 years that is just stuck. So, I feel like I've done a little bit of everything. I've done the print, I've done the web presence, I have the socials, and all that. And so for me and my business, what's working the best is creating relationships, and hand in hand, also educating people. My Instagram is really, it's not a, here's a pretty picture, call me. It's a, hey, I'm here, I'm in the Swiss Alps, and this is the hotel, and here's a great restaurant. And to me, I'm giving that information, because I'm just showing, it's like, hey, you know I'm there. I know people. I know, this person. I'm eating at the best restaurants. And so I kind of do a little bit of everything. So, I have targeted relationships and organizations that I'm a member of, who share the same passions as I do. Like I'm in the Shandaroda Sours, which is a culinary organization. I'm in several things like that. And then that puts me into contact with the people. And then, all of my blog, my Insta, and all that is just reminding them, hey, I'm here. This is what I do. And then they can send their friends to that. And that's kind of how I do it versus just, trying to play the SEO game because, you know, that hasn't been our best option.
I really appreciate you sharing that because I like that you are essentially walking the walk, and that's what I do in my business as well. So I can relate to that. Whereas I'm helping clients in different countries around the globe and I've done these processes myself, or I've been to these countries and I can tell them from a firsthand experience, is it safe? Go here, go there. You need this document. So I think that increasingly in the world of marketing, that is becoming more important to people because it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's not, blogging for, oh my gosh, like SEO is just a beast and we do work with it a little bit, but it's not blogging for Google to see it, not for the client to see it. It's really very client facing and showing them, hey, this is what I do and I live this lifestyle and I can help you to, get there or to travel there or to experience this.
Yeah. And I think there's a confidence that comes with giving your knowledge. I'm not giving all my knowledge away, but giving your knowledge away, and saying, you know what, here, you know, and if I'm your person, that's awesome. But, I'm not, I don't need, good golly, if 2,000 people rang my phone today, I'd be a mess, even if they weren't a fit, just the time it takes. And so, I'm very intentional with how we grow. And, I think there's something to be said for, kind of edutainment.
The only way this show grows is if you share the episodes you love and your key takeaways. If you've been loving this show, hit subscribe and leave a 5-star review with your favorite takeaways. We appreciate you, and let's get back into the episode. I could not agree more. Okay, so let's transition from the business aspect of things over to the travel aspect of things, which I was going to say is more fun, but actually I love talking business. So I think they're both equally as fun for me, and I'm sure for you as well. But travel. So you work in luxury travel. You have been traveling the world for quite a while. What are some amazing one-of-a-kind experiences that you have experienced and that you can then relay that and your clients can experience that as well?
Sure, I'll give you a couple just right off the top of my head. And I mentioned one of them a little bit earlier. One of my most recent ones was when I went to Uganda last fall and went gorilla trekking and chimpanzee trekking. And it was so adventuresome. I mean, it just was really, just being that close. And originally I thought, and it was amazing, the gorillas would be pinnacle, but actually the chimpanzees just really, I mean, I expected, just little small, little docile, cheetah to Tarzan kind of thing. And, when I see them face to face, they're larger. The chimpanzees are larger than what I thought. They're like, kind of sitting down, they're kind of just under chest level to me. And they had that intense look, that look, when you see the newer Planet of the Apes and you see that intense look. I'm like, I was the recipient of that look and went, oh, and they're hunters. They're carnivore hunters. And I'm like, and I kind of felt that. It felt a little not unsafe in a bad way, but like I'm not in a zoo. I'm not, this is wild, and so that was just really cool. And again, Antarctica was amazing. I thought it was a one and done. And I get there and it's mountainous. I didn't expect the dramatic mountains, the blues of the glaciers, and just how they're textured. I went for the penguins, and I got the penguins. I got the penguins in spades, and the baby penguins, they were so cute. But the mountains, I'm like, and so we found this quiet little bay, kind of in between the mountains. It kind of created this little protective area, and we got to kayak there. And so I was with one of my besties, and she was in the front. And I mean, I just took all these pictures, and it was quiet. And to me, I was like, I would go back. I would totally go back. So, I mean, that's two of my most recent. I mean, I could talk travel all day, but yeah. And so a
Wow.
lot of it's like food related, food and wine related, and it's not always like nature related, but yeah.
Oh yeah, food and wine. I mean, why are you traveling if you're not traveling for the food and wine, right? And that's not a major component.
I, you know, I, to me, I had someone ask me once, they're like, Becky, do you only eat when you travel? Is that all you do? I'm like, kinda, but I'm like, they're like, well, don't you feel like you're gonna miss some cultural thing? And I'm like, okay, I'm in France, right? Or I'm in Italy, right? And food is culture. And a 3-hour lunch is a beautiful thing, and that's culture. I'm like, no, I'm not missing out on anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge piece of culture. So, talk to me about some of the challenges, whether that be in building a business, building a community of women who are interested in luxury travel around the globe, from a business or from a travel perspective. I'm curious what some of the challenges that you have faced throughout your journey have looked like.
Sure. One, especially this day and age as an entrepreneur, is building a community of peers, even in your industry. I know sometimes there's some fear to it because, we always want to network with people outside of our industry, which is great. But there is something really special about sharing, perspective and information with a group of your peers who are in the same industry, and you're growing together and you're strengthening your industry, which makes everybody better. And, to have somebody to call and go, what the heck? What do I do here? And, to have another strong entrepreneur you respect talk you through it. And so, I think community is definitely a challenge. Um, fear, fear is huge. And, even every year around this time, I'm always concerned about, okay, am I going to be able to, especially now that I have a team under me, can I make payroll? Can I do this? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? And of course I am. I mean, just like, of course I am. And then by September, I'm like, oh, I totally got this. And I always have to fight that fear part of me that keeps me from growing, or keeps me from, investing in my business or investing in myself because I'm afraid. But it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you're not investing in your business, if your tools are always the free version or they're always you know, or you're like, oh, I can't do that. It's great. You may be here, but you have to elevate, that fear with adding a team member. It's like, well, I can't yet. And I lived there for way too long. It's like, well, I can't afford to bring in a person. And then when I brought in the person, suddenly I'm making more money, because I have help. And then it's like, oh my gosh. And then I bring in another one. And it's like, how am I going to pay this person? And then I'm making more money. And, and this isn't like MLM. I mean, this is like legit people on my team. So yeah, so that fear I would say is kind of that third one.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Okay, so my last question for you piggybacks off of what you just said, which is as an entrepreneur, you have built something incredible, not only for yourself, but for your family, for your team. What do you do in terms of ensuring that you are always or most of the time, in a proper mindset? What mindset work goes into you as a person, but also to help the business succeed?
Oh golly, that is such a good question. I think, that dovetails on that fear part, that I talked about a lot because I think we get in that fear mindset. And I think it's also very easy to get into, people pleasing mindset, at least in my industry, because, I don't have a boss to say good job. So I have to find other ways to get that good job. And that's not always the healthy thing. And so, my mindset has to be, one of really honing my values as a person, my values as a company, not the value I bring, but what are my values as a company. Like one of my big things is, what, no matter what, do the right thing, even if it's going to cost me something, even if they may never know it. It's like, but the right thing is this. And so that's number one, do the right thing, take care of my people, that type of thing, so, values, mindset. And then what I'm really learning is that boundary piece. And so for me, boundaries were always about, just where I spent my time. But what I'm coming to realize, boundaries are also the access that I give. And so, it's like, and it's not that it's not an all or nothing. And I think that's what's the big thing that I've learned is that it's not like, okay, you either have access or you don't, so you may be here and then you may be a little closer in, or you may be a little closer in, and managing that even as a company, managing, my boundaries as a client, with my clients, like, who are the inner circle clients, and not that these clients over here don't matter, but if I spend all of my time with the clients over here, then my very best clients aren't getting my best work. And so, and again, that's where a team comes in, where I can push those things, some things for them to do. And then I can spend my time where it's most valuable, if that makes sense. So I think kind of having that boundary mindset as well is helpful for me.
Yeah, I like that you included that because boundaries, I think for every entrepreneur, it's tricky, especially I would say, like the first few years and then client pleasing. And it's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs you constantly have to be mindful of because it can be very easy to go a little bit over that line, want to go the extra mile. But you really have to set those boundaries sometimes and those standards. So, Becky, do you have any last words before we wrap up the podcast?
I think, you know, my last words would be, as an entrepreneurial woman, it's like, do it, be fearless, go for it. Start small if you need to, but, do it, take the trip, but build the business and believe in yourself. It's like, you can do it, and just take the plunge and go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think especially as women, it can be more difficult sometimes to just pull the trigger and just do it. But there's other responsibilities and things going on in life as everybody has. But if it is something that you're truly passionate about, I believe if you're passionate about something, then that is what's going to grow and flourish. Because if you're doing it just for the money and it's not something that you're going to have to spend day in and day out on that business, where is that going to go if it's not a true passion of yours?
Yeah, and we doubt ourselves, we second guess ourselves and just think, well, maybe later. And it's like, don't, just do it.
Couldn't agree more. So, Becky, where can everybody listening find you online?
You can find me, the best places to find me are my Instagram. So my Instagram is my Bella Travel. If you're not on Insta, of course, my Facebook, my Bella Travel is there as well. And then my website is my Bella Travel.
Easy. Everything is my Bella Travel. I love that. And everything is linked below. Becky, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.